how to handle social anxiety in everyday situations. If you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It truly helps the channel grow and continue to create contents like this. Social anxiety is one of those things that can feel invisible to everyone else and painfully loud inside your own body. You can be standing in a room, smiling, nodding, doing all the normal human things, and inside, you're running a full-blown emergency broadcast, heart racing, mind scanning, shoulders tight. That constant self-awareness that feels like a spotlight is glued to your forehead. And what makes it worse is the shame. People don't just feel anxious. They feel anxious about feeling anxious. They start judging themselves for it, which adds another layer of pressure. Then they try to hide it, which makes them even more tense, which makes the anxiety spike, and suddenly, you're stuck in a loop. Handling social anxiety isn't about becoming fearless overnight. It's about learning how to work with your nervous system instead of fighting it. Because social anxiety at its core is a nervous system response. It's your body saying, this is risky, even when your rational mind knows it's not a life or death situation. The first big shift is recognizing that your body is trying to protect you. It's not trying to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you from rejection, embarrassment, or being judged, things that historically mattered for survival. Humans are social mammals. Being excluded used to be dangerous. So your nervous system treats social uncertainty like a threat. When you understand that, you stop treating anxiety like an enemy. You start treating it like an overprotective security guard. It means well, but it's a little dramatic. The goal isn't to fire the guard. It's to retrain it. One of the most important concepts is this. Anxiety is not a sign you can't handle the situation. It's a sign your body is gearing up. That energy can either become panic or it can become presence, depending on what you do next. The biggest mistake people make is trying to make the anxiety go away immediately. They want to delete it. They want a switch. But the more you try to eliminate it, the more attention you give it and the bigger it feels. A better approach is to lower the volume, not chase silence. Start with the body, because the body drives the mind. If you try to think your way out of social anxiety while your body is in fight or flight, it won't work. Your thoughts will keep spinning because the body is signaling danger. The fastest body lever is your breath, not complicated breathing exercises. Just one simple rule: longer exhale than inhale. Inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. Do that a few times before you walk into a social situation, and your nervous system starts to shift. You're telling your body, we're not running, we're safe. Another body lever is posture. Social anxiety collapses posture. You fold in on yourself to take up less space. That posture tells your brain you're threatened, so you do the opposite. Subtle, not exaggerated. Shoulders down, chest relaxed, neck neutral, feet grounded. You're not trying to look confident. You're trying to send the safety signal to your own body. Then there's attention. Social anxiety hijacks attention and turns it inward. You start monitoring yourself like you're a camera crew. How am I standing? How do I sound? Are my hands shaking? What did they think of that? That internal spotlight is exhausting. So the skill is redirecting attention outward, not in a forced way, but in a curious way. What do you notice in the environment? What's the music? What are people laughing about? What's one small detail you can describe? The moment you move attention outward, you loosen the grip of self-monitoring. Here's a practical move. Before you enter a room, pick a simple mission that isn't about you. Something like find one person to ask a question, or compliment someone, or listen for one interesting story. Missions reduce overthinking because they give your mind a job. Now let's talk about the stories social anxiety tells you. The classic one is, everyone is watching me. That's rarely true. Most people are thinking about themselves. They're worried about how they look, how they sound, whether they belong. Social anxiety makes you think you're under a spotlight, but most of the time the spotlight is in your head. Another story is, if I'm awkward, it will be catastrophic. But awkward moments happen to everyone. The difference is socially comfortable people don't assign meaning to them. They don't turn a moment into an identity. They think, that was a weird moment, and they move on. Social anxiety turns it into, I'm weird. That identity story is what keeps the loop alive. Handling social anxiety means learning to separate sensation from meaning. Your heart can race without it meaning danger. Your hands can feel shaky without it meaning you're failing. Your mind can go blank without it meaning you're incompetent. The sensations are just sensations. A huge upgrade is giving yourself permission to be imperfect. Social anxiety often comes from trying to be flawless, trying to never pause, never stumble, never be judged. That's an impossible standard, and impossible standards create anxiety. Replace the goal "be impressive" with the goal "be present." Presence is sustainable, performance is not. Now, everyday situations are where this really shows up. Walking into a party, talking to a cashier, making a phone call, joining a conversation at work, meeting someone new. The stakes are low, but your body doesn't feel that, so you train your body through small exposures. This is where people get it wrong. They try to conquer their biggest fear first. They jump into the hardest situation and then feel overwhelmed and decide they can't do it. Better approach: do smaller, manageable exposures consistently. Make eye contact and smile at one person. Ask a simple question in a store. Make one brief comment in a meeting. These are reps. Your nervous system learns through repetition, not logic. Another helpful tactic is planning simple openers that don't feel scripted. Not lines, but templates. How do you know the host? What brought you here? How's your day going? That's a cool jacket. Where'd you get it? The goal isn't to sound clever, it's to start. Starting is the hardest part. Once you're in motion, the anxiety often drops. Not always, but often. Social anxiety feeds on anticipation. The before is frequently worse than the during. There's also an important point about recovery. Socially anxious people often interpret the first anxious moment as proof they should leave. But anxiety has a peak and a drop, like a wave. If you can stay in the situation long enough for the wave to crest and fall, you teach your nervous system something powerful. I can feel this and survive it. Leaving too early teaches the opposite. Anxiety means danger. That reinforces the loop. So your job is to stay just long enough to prove safety, not to suffer, not to push yourself into panic, just long enough to let the wave pass a little. That's how tolerance grows. When social anxiety spikes in the moment, the hardest part isn't the anxiety itself. It's the feeling of having nothing to hold on to. Your mind goes blank, your body tightens, and it feels like the floor drops out from under you. That's why having a simple internal framework matters. Not a script, not a performance, just an anchor. One of the most effective anchors is this 3-step loop: notice, soften, redirect. Notice means naming what's happening without judgment. Not "I'm freaking out," but "my heart is racing" or "my chest feels tight." This pulls you out of the story and into the sensation. The brain calms down when things are named clearly. It's no longer fighting a mystery. Soften means reducing resistance. Instead of trying to push the anxiety away, you let it be there. You relax the jaw, you drop the shoulders, you unclench the hands. This tells your nervous system you're not in danger, even if the sensation is uncomfortable. Redirect means moving attention outward again. You notice the person in front of you, you listen to their words, you look at their expression, you ask a simple follow-up. Anxiety shrinks when attention expands beyond the self. This loop doesn't eliminate anxiety instantly. It gives you something to do while it passes. And that's the key. Social anxiety passes when it's not fed. Now let's talk about specific everyday scenarios. Walking into a room is a big one. That threshold moment, the doorway, is where anxiety loves to spike. Your body hasn't adjusted yet, and your mind is already predicting outcomes. The mistake people make is rushing through the doorway to escape the discomfort. That actually increases anxiety. A better move is slowing the entry. One breath before you walk in, 1 second to look around, one grounded step forward. This isn't about confidence for others. It's about orientation for yourself. When you orient, your nervous system feels less lost. Joining a conversation is another common trigger. People stand on the edge, listening, waiting for the perfect moment. That moment rarely comes. Anxiety grows the longer you hover. Instead of waiting for perfect timing, look for relevance. Is there a word you can echo? A reaction you can agree with? A a question that naturally fits what's being discussed. You don't need to add something brilliant. You just need to add something connected. And if you interrupt accidentally, it's okay. You can say, "Sorry, go ahead," and reset. That doesn't ruin anything. People are far more forgiving than social anxiety tells you. Awkward silences are another fear. Silence feels like exposure, but silence is neutral until you label it as bad. Often, silence just means people are thinking, or transitioning, or comfortable. If silence happens, you don't have to fix it immediately. You can take a breath. You can make an observation. You can ask a simple question. Or you can let it be. Silence only becomes awkward when someone panics. Mind going blank is another classic anxiety moment. Your thoughts vanish, and you feel pressure to perform. The trick here is remembering you don't need originality. You need response. You can reflect what was just said. You can ask for clarification. You can comment on the situation. You can even say, "I lost my train of thought for a second," and smile. That honesty often creates warmth instead of judgment. One of the most powerful shifts is changing how you define success. Socially anxious people define success as "I wasn't anxious" or "I didn't mess up." That's not realistic. A better definition is "I showed up," or "I stayed," or "I spoke once," or "I didn't run." Those wins count, and your nervous system counts them too. Another huge piece is what happens after the interaction. Social anxiety loves post-game analysis. You replay everything. You zoom in on one moment. You ignore everything that went fine. This is where you interrupt the loop. When you catch yourself replaying, ask one simple question: what went okay? Force your mind to find evidence of safety, not perfection. Safety. Over time, this retrains the brain. It's also important to talk about energy management. Social anxiety is worse when you're tired, hungry, overstimulated, or stressed. You're not broken, you're depleted. Taking care of your baseline makes social situations easier. Sleep matters. Food matters. Movement matters. Another overlooked factor is self-talk. The way you speak to yourself before and after social situations shapes your experience more than the situation itself. If your inner voice is harsh, your body stays tense. If your inner voice is compassionate, your body softens. Instead of "Why am I like this?" try "This is hard and I'm learning." That shift alone reduces pressure. There's also freedom in letting go of the idea that everyone needs to like you. Social anxiety often comes from overvaluing approval. Quietly deciding, "It's okay if not everyone connects with me," creates space. You stop performing, you start being. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to be liked, you often become more likable because you're more relaxed. One of the most empowering realizations is that confidence doesn't come from the absence of anxiety. It comes from moving forward while anxiety is present. Brave people aren't calm all the time. They're willing to feel discomfort without letting it dictate their actions. Handling social anxiety is a skill, not a personality trait. Skills improve with practice. Some days will feel easy. Some days won't. That's normal. The goal isn't to become the most outgoing person in the room. The goal is to feel free enough to show up as yourself without being controlled by fear. Over time, as you practice staying, redirecting attention, and softening resistance, something shifts. Anxiety still shows up, but it doesn't dominate. It becomes background noise instead of the main event. And when that happens, social situations stop feeling like tests you have to pass. They start feeling like experiences you can participate in, imperfectly, humanly, and with far more ease than you thought possible. That's how social anxiety loses its grip, not through force, not through avoidance, but through understanding, patience, and steady exposure, one ordinary moment at a time.